So, ladies and gentlemen, you and I have heard of split personalities before. Our next speaker has a personality that has split 2 for 1 at least twice. Schizophrenia. Well, that's not in here, but during his 30-year career, he worked successfully in 7 individual fields prior to becoming a professional speaker and trainer. And we're not sure that he'll last here either. That's a funny line. Is he experienced, you may ask? Yes, he has been a prison escapee, a dishwasher in an institution, an international smuggler twice, an unsuccessful mountain climber. Has he traveled? Yes, indeed. He has been cursed by Cheops' revenge in Egypt, thrown off a train in both Switzerland and Finland, mistaken for a nationally known swindler, slept in over 5,000 strange beds. All kidding aside, now that I have your attention, he has been a cartoonist, a television news writer and editor, a freelance writer, a graphic artist, an advertising director, a licensed architect, a college professor in one of the great universities in our world. Now, people are his only product. Join me, please, in welcoming Dr. I.L. Create and Associates as they present People, Our Greatest Resource or Our Worst Problem. Here's the doctor. Where? What? Here's the doctor.
All kidding aside, I'm a specialist in corporate image. At least that's what the fellow speakers always remind me of. Seeing one of the best speakers I've ever heard or seen practice or present just did a striptease, I guess I can get away with it. People are our most important product, perhaps our most or worst problem. That's the issue I want to talk about in the time I have allocated. We've spent centuries doing the wrong things. Some of the other speakers have already reminded us of that in various ways. You ever caught yourself doing this? Saying, you know, boy, he plays with a short deck. Well, I have a few extra cards if you're missing any. They're a little larger so you can remember not to lose them. You ever heard that one that he had a few screws, loose screws? Well, here's a few extra screws in case you're missing some. Or have you heard the one about, you know, their elevators just don't go to the top floor? You know? That's how people look at people. Cartoonists look at people in a variety of ways. I've dabbled at it. I still continue to dabble at it. Well, let me show you a couple examples of how cartoonists have looked at the problem of people. Here's a supervisor and his employee. Goose, Sarge, goose! And there's an explosion. Did you by any chance mean to say duck? Some of you have had secretaries that have done this to you. You dictate a letter for a half hour or some correspondence for a half hour, and then she says, do you want this typed up just the way you said it, or shall I chop it up into sentences? 150 to 200 years ago, it was not uncommon in the United States for gentlemen, perhaps some of the men here could be representatives, to duel over a variety of issues. Handable pretty woman, take her hand. A piece of land, an argument over a horse, but they duel. And I think it's an interesting system. I'm from the Midwest originally, but a Southerner by choice since 1972, as I was reminded by Ty earlier, that the person who wrongs the other person gets to choose the weapon. I thought that's kind of an interesting idea. I come up to Tom, I do something wrong to him, he slaps me with the token slap of the glove, but I get to choose the weapons.
Grenades.
And I say, big grenades, first person throws. No, you lost. But here's a case where that doesn't always work. You may be good at your weapon, whatever it is, and we translate it into business. You may be good as a leader, a manager, an engineer, a scientist, but that may not be enough, because this could happen to you. He's saying you're not supposed to throw it. My topic and the emphasis of my work. When I came to the University of Georgia over 10 years ago, my goal was to get a doctorate in creativity. Was my interest. Gee, you probably wouldn't have noticed that. Having been an architect and a few other things, my goal was to help other people become creative because that seemed to be the only thing that drove me on a day-to-day basis. But I found there was only one thing common to the 7 different fields, and that was people. It was the people I loved. And I learned that by working with a group of gifted kids as a teacher, a volunteer teacher once a week for 8 hours with kindergarten through 5th graders. I spent more time doing that, which I got no money for at all, while I was trying to run a small architectural office, at the same time paying alimony and a few other little sundry items that come when you change life. But people are the problem. Well, at least they have been. Back in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, around the 1830s in the United States to the 1960s, this is how owners of companies looked at their workers. What might that say, Becky?
A workhorse.
Okay, an animal, a workhorse, no head, no brain. In fact, a lot of managers, and you hear this from a lot of excellent speakers who roam the country and the world, leave your brain at the door, you ain't gonna need it here. But on the way home, pick it up, you may need it as a mother or a father or a brother or a sister. But come the 60s, for a variety of reasons, emphasis on education, good times, change in the genes, change in the air, whatever the reasons are, now managers started looking at their personnel as that. Their bodies, but they do have brains. They can think. But something's still missing. It started to show in the 80s when leaders started looking at their employees as total human beings. Mind, body, soul. Let me act out a scene for you that probably happens in the United States every day. Managers, bosses, owners doing this type of thing. People, they cost me money. People, they cost me money. Every day I turn around, it's costing me more money. I'm also testing to see who's observant. There actually is real money in there, besides the phony stuff that has my picture on it. But we need to do at least 4 things for our people, all regarding training. 4 areas that I have found fit my 30 years, and hopefully the remainder of my life, whatever length that is. Hopefully many decades. These are the 4 things I feel that we need to train, and they happen to be the most common today. Leadership, communication skills, teamwork, and creativeness. A few tidbits I've learned over the years of doing this. 1, Americans hate to work in groups. Americans hate to be managed. And there's a certain thing about this room that tells me that, as all rooms that have more chairs than they need. Where are the empty seats? Usually up front. I don't care if you're Baptist, Presbyterian, Hindu, atheist, agnostic, or whatever. Typical Americans sit in the back. Where do the Japanese sit? Down front, with the cameras, the tape recorders, and all the other stuff. Those are the 4 areas that I have interest in. But this is what we need to focus in, and when I asked you to fill out that questionnaire for, I need to know you as Penny. I need to know you as Tom. I need to know you as Vicki, who Vicki really is. And one of the ways I'm asking you to take a look at for these few minutes is how maybe you think. If I know how you think, I can then discover how you might learn. If I know how you think and learn, I can figure out how you solve problems. If I know how you think, learn, solve problems, I can also understand how you communicate. And I guarantee you, no two people in this room communicate the same way. And as Meryl talked about some of the things and some of the others saying, who's the worst example? I guess it was Tide, actually, was bragging about being the worst example of what he does. We all are. I teach communication. Who do I have most trouble communicating with? My wife and my stepdaughter, 17 going on 50, who didn't want to go to a liberal arts school because we're too liberal. She wanted to go to a conservative science school. You got to think about that one. But I want to share a little bit about what that might say, that little questionnaire you filled out. And we will have a drawing later. And I have 3 copies of my book, which is the results of several years of working at this. But my premise is based on analyzing over 300 separate questionnaires that are used in business, industry, and education today. From the Myers-Briggs to the left brain, right brain, to tea leaves, to you name it. I've got them by the thousands in my files. But what I found by examining 300 of them, that they ask 4 basic things. How rational are you, or you choose to be? How intuitive are you, or you choose to be? How people-oriented are you, or you choose to be? How systematic are you, or choose to be? Oh, they may break it down into 16, like human synergistics. They may break it down into 6, like John Holland. They may break it down into 5, but when you examine it, the other ones beyond 4 are just combinations. And this is not new. Hippocrates talked about it in the Western world. The I Ching talked about it in the Eastern world. But that was 8,000 years ago. Gee, there's nothing new under the sun, folks. Just got a new name on it. I call it mind because my work came from the brain research. Left brain, right brain research. But I found out it's not the brain. It's what you do with that brain that you got, which is what is called, in my terms, not metaphysical terms, mind. I can design my mind. I can create my mind. That's the function. Now, how many of you had M come up as your highest score? By a show of hands. In fact, why don't you stand up just for a second? I'm going to embarrass everybody, so don't worry about it. Generally, facts, figures, specifics, logic, doing things that make sense are important to you. Is that true?
Somewhat.
True? Are you a little troublesome with people who become friendly too fast? Perhaps. Okay. This is tendencies. No test can describe you. I don't care if it has 9 questions or 9,000 questions. Okay, thank you. The intuitives. Please stand. Those who scored higher on that. These are the so-called right brain people. I use the yin and yang colors, red and green, for yin and yang. Also means stop and go. The logical mind tends to stop and focus. The intuitive mind never stops. Do you see yourself as being perhaps creative or open to creative things? Do you tend to have lots of ideas for things that other people only want one solution? Do you also see possibilities in things that other people do not ever see? And at the same time, do you generally have different viewpoints than most of the rest of the people that you know? Thank you. N's, please stand. A lot of times they're sitting in the same place because they generally, friendship, personal, being personal, they generally show their emotions and they tend to base everything they do on their own personal experiences. You're getting to stand up twice. You're cheating. You had a tie. Oh, I forgot to mention ties can't stand up. Anyway, thank you. The D's, please stand. Tend to be practical, rule-oriented, policies, tradition. These are the people that eat up Merrill Davis's book. In fact, probably help him write it. Do you generally keep lists? Yeah. Do you keep lists? Do you keep lists? You keep lists? If not on paper, in your head?
I keep lists.
Okay, all the I's. How many of you keep lists? Just the I's? How many of you find old lists when you're hunting through things? Okay. When you start something, do you finish it? Generally? Do you?
Yes.
The eyes, how many of you have a few things at home you haven't finished? Okay, all right, thank you. Generally, the population is a combination of 2 of the 4. 2/3 of any group. I don't care what the occupation. I've worked with over 40,000 people in the last 8 years on this. Generally, they're a combination of 2. About 1/6 is a single one. Another 6, a combination of 3 or 4. The most important thing is for me to get to know Sally so that if her way is contrasting to mine, we can work it out. If you match, you have minimum problems. If you vertically are different, MD, IN, you will have problems, I guarantee you, 20% of the time, 20 to 25. If it's a horizontal comparison, MI, ND, 50% of the time. And if it's diagonal, 75% of the time, I can guarantee you. Simple exercises or just actual work will see the problem. The importance part